I'm not big into moral victories, but there were some positives to take away from that Colorado loss against USC.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borwa. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our good old sponsors at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Joining me today is Locked On Pac-12/Locked On Oregon's very own Spencer McLaughlin. Spencer, how you doing?
Oh, we are ready for another week of college football, even though it's a light one in the Pac-12. We got 4 games this week. I can't even do a full slate of the Pac-12 prime picks, but ready for it nonetheless.
It is. It's a light slate. Everybody's taking some time off. You know who is not taking some time off is us over here at Locked On, because we're here every single day, your team, for free, wherever you get your podcasts. So we're going to dive right into what was the biggest game of last weekend. Looked like it was going to be terrible. Obviously, Colorado came back, and I think that says a lot about USC's defense, but also about Colorado's resiliency. So talk to me from, I guess, the overall Pac-12 perspective. What does that tell you about Colorado?
Well, it definitely tells you they were going up against a bad defense, but also I think affirms that, the Oregon game was closer to a one-off than the reality for the Buffs. I mean, Nebraska had them struggling for a half, couldn't contain them in the second. Oregon, of course, contained them for the entire game, but I mean, you have 5 games of evidence right now, and in 4 of them, Colorado has scored at least 30 points. Am I correct in getting that stat off the top of my head? So I think it's pretty clear this team knows how to score. They're actually my favorite bet of the week for the 4 Pac-12 games. I like Washington State to win outright, and they're a 3.5-point dog at UCLA, but I think the Buffs are going to go down to Arizona State and win as well, because I look at their offense and say, Travis Hunter or not, they're clearly capable of being productive. And Arizona State's defense is good. They have been a good unit this year for the Sun Devils. The offense has not. But I look at what Arizona State's bringing to the table defensively, and the one team that shut down Colorado is Oregon. What they bring to the table defensively, the talent on those 2 rosters is not comparable. Like, it is not even remotely close. Like, you got NFL guys on Oregon's defense. You have, I don't know if you got one on ASU's defense. You might have one. BJ Green, maybe. He's a pretty good player, but I don't know. So I think Arizona State is curiously only a 4.5-point dog to Colorado, and I think the positives from last week are that you proved again that the offense is capable of scoring points whether or not Travis Hunter is there. Of course, it's better to have him, but Omarion Miller, it is, right? He came back. He came into the game and really burst onto the scene. And we know what Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn can bring to the table, and we know Shedeur Sanders is really good. All of that was there. And then the other side too is, I know you're going up against a bad defense, but do you know what a team capable of running the football does against a bad defense? They run the football with success, and they ran the football well. And this doesn't need to be a 50-50 balanced offense, but I mean, to this point in the season, it hasn't even been 90-10. I think it's been like 98-2. Like that. Yeah. That's kind of how it's felt. If you can just shift that down to, I don't know, 70-30, that helps Shedeur Sanders in the offense tremendously, and I think it helps the defense as well, because you can string together some longer drives and give them a chance to catch their breath. So I think there are a lot of positives coming in that game from Colorado, and it's why I like them this week against ASU, which is weird to hear from a Colorado hater as myself, as I have been so dubbed by many of Buffs Nation. But, it's okay. It comes with the territory.
If the shoe fits, There's a few positives that I think were overlooked. I liked Omarion Miller shadow because he's probably, I would say, they're one of their best options at receiver right now. And I think he should have been playing all along. I did multiple episodes throughout the offseason about him playing and then never played. And I was like, oh, maybe I was just too much in on the Omarion Miller hype. But now it's Miller time. So I'm excited about that. And then Anthony Hankerson. I think he's the running back that I least expected to kind of be that guy. I talked about on your podcast, Ultimate Caskell, still hasn't played much at all, has like 5 carries on the year.
Yep.
Dylan Edwards is just really small, and I don't think with Colorado's current offensive line that he's the answer at running back. And so Anthony Hankerson came in, kind of established himself, and I like that because, like you said, gives Shedeur some support. And then also, The defense, while they did give up 48 points, they did not give up nearly as many points in the second half. And so their team's adjustments for Colorado have been really good outside the Oregon game. Oregon's a top 10 team. They're top 10 in offense and they're top 10 in defense. So that's a tough matchup for anybody, and that's a tough way to adjust. But Colorado, a lot of bright spots. Okay, I need a positive about Shedeur Sanders because obviously we all know how good he is. But
I could give you 4 if you want.
yeah, did seeing him going up against Caleb Williams like add anything to you? Like what you thought about him?
Well, no, Caleb Williams doesn't play defense.
Well, that's true, but like head to head, you know.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion of these guys did not change after Saturday. I know exactly what they are, which are NFL prospects of the first round variety. And I look at Shedeur Sanders, who's been really impressive this year, has only really had one bad game, and he's come through in clutch moments. He's come through, late in games, third and fourth downs. Like, he's been there. He can make every throw on the field. He's got a great arm. He's got a great football IQ. He threw his first interception of the season this past week against USC. And, I praised him for the last couple weeks on the show because I said, man, every time I watch him play, he's never putting the ball in harm's way. Even against Oregon. He had one ball that could have been picked, but he was throwing up a 50-50 ball, and the corner made a better play than his wide receiver. And I think he rarely puts the ball in harm's way and just does a really nice job of reading the defense and knowing where to go. I think he got a little rattled early in that game against USC. Joel Klatt was pointing out that he missed a couple of reads that he normally has made. But then you spoke to the resiliency of the entire team earlier. That starts with Shedeur Sanders. It starts with Shedeur and his ability to be the leader offensively, and he certainly is, and he's the guy who they're entirely reliant upon to move the football, because until this past week, as everyone knows, Colorado hasn't been able to run it at all. And so it's been the Shedeur show, but so far it's been, a curtain call kind of performance this season from Deion's kid. So I think that he's just been really, really good. And, his ability to come back in that game, move down the field and check into some questionable running plays was another
a learning moment. That's the positive, though. It's a learning moment.
Yeah, that's a learning moment. That is a learning moment. It's one thing to call the run once. Like, I get it. We see on those drives, defense is expecting pass, linebackers' first step is back, defensive ends' first step is out to try and get around the tackles. You can gash a team for 7 to 12 yards. But when the first handoff goes for 2, you don't go back to it.
There's no timeout. That's what I was like. Maybe if we had 3 timeouts to play with, and it was like, no, they had wasted timeouts. Every timeout was gone with I think by like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So they knew there was no timeout. So learning moment there. I have one more question. This is a negative kind of, but this is Colorado's MO this year. It is get punched in the mouth like extremely hard in the first quarter, and then they turn things around. What do they need to do to not be shut out in the first quarter? Because they've only scored, I want to say prior to this USC game, it was like an average of 4 points per first quarter, if I remember my math correctly. I did a little deep dive into it. They're not putting up a lot of points up first. So why do they need to be punched in the mouth before they do anything?
Just run the football a little. Just a smidgen. And I think this helps the defense too, because when Colorado's gotten the ball, look at the Oregon game, for instance. They get on the field, they throw the ball 3 times, doesn't go the way they want, quick 3 and out.
Right.
30 seconds off the clock, and Oregon already has the football back. Like, you have to at least, just from a momentum and mentality standpoint for your defense, let them sit there a bit. Because if you walk onto the field, you barely use any clock and go 3 and out, I think that's demoralizing for a defense, because they look up and they feel, oh, great, now the pressure's on us. Like, we got to pick up the offense here. And I think for Colorado, everyone is coming out and knowing that Shedeur Sanders is going to throw the football. If you can run it just a little, like, you don't even have to score on an opening drive, but just being able to move it down the field, pick up a couple third downs, take 6 minutes off the clock, have their offense, sit over there, maybe go down, get a field goal, whatever the case may be. Something has to change there. The quick 3 and out or 6 and out, get a first down and then have to punt really quickly. That, I think, is why Colorado's gotten off to these slow starts. And I think it comes from the defense is coming out and they're saying, well, we know you're not going to run the football, so we're just going to sit on the passing attack.
Yeah.
And then the offensive line has struggled, so they get into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and those are tough to convert.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I heard this yesterday on a podcast. It was Julian Edelman talking about scripted plays because obviously the first 15 plays are scripted. And it kind of messes up your script if things don't work. So if Colorado goes out there and the script fails, and then it's like, well, that's all we had. And so
and then the offensive coordinator has to ask himself, well, do we go back to the script or do we just start calling plays as we see them? Because, Edelman is, of course, right that the first 15, 20, I think it depends on the offensive coordinator in the system. They'll say, these are the plays we're running in this order. And then if we get to this spot, we have to get off of it. But I mean, for the most part, sometimes you might see a run on 2nd down and 10 because the first play is supposed to be a 5-yard completion. But if it's an incompletion, they're still going to stay on script and say, well, no, we feel like we can pick up, 6, 7 yards maybe and then throw for the first down. So, I think they've gotten away from that. And then it's kind of taken them a while to find their footing. So being ready like they were at TCU on that opening drive is going to be crucial.
Yeah, maybe rewrite the script a little bit, a little last minute change and throw in a run because obviously the script is assuming that everything's going to work. So when things don't work, the script becomes improv, and we don't like improv in college football. I mean, we do sometimes, but not all the time when you're calling plays. What we do like over here on Locked On Buffs and Locked On Pac-12 is our good old sponsors over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Like myself, I was once a perfect candidate looking for a job, and the Pac-12 networks found me. I found them. We got together, had a perfect marriage. That was my first job coming out of college, and now look at me now. I'm with Spencer McLaughlin, the biggest guy in the game. So if you want to find the perfect candidate, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they do apply. Okay, Spencer, we are back, and we're talking about the state of Colorado, not the state itself, not their nice mountains and wintry weathers and high altitude, but the state of the program. Because I think coming into the season, me and you were both kind of guilty of it. We were like, by this time, 5 games in, Colorado would be lucky to be, I think after the first 2 weeks, we were like 2-2 would be great, or for first 4 weeks, excuse me. And then it was like, after that, anything like is solid, What do you think the state of the program is now? They're a strong 3-2.
A strong 3-2. That's an interesting way to phrase it. I think you could just as easily look at their schedule and say they're 2 plays away from being 1-4.
Or you could say they're a few plays away, a few not running the ball plays away from being 4-1.
Well, I don't think they were actually going to win that game. Like they trailed 41-14 at one point.
They did.
They put up a heck of an effort, and kudos to them. But like, I don't think they were ever going to win that particular football game. So I don't know that it could be going much better. Is what I'm saying. Like Colorado State and TCU, yes, they won the game. It was not that the other teams lost it. I mean, Colorado State certainly helped out with the penalties and such, but like there is a realistic scenario right now where Colorado is under 500. And I mean, those are both go either way games. Nebraska was not. Colorado was just better. They were always going to win, but Colorado State should have probably lost the game. TCU, I'd say, could have lost the game. So I think it's going exceptionally well. And as long as Colorado gets to 6 wins, it's a wildly successful season. It surpasses my expectations and that of a lot of people. And I know the Colorado fans will be all, well, you just didn't believe and all that sort of stuff. And like, okay, yada, yada, yada. Their win total was 3.5 for a reason. And that's because they still have a ways to go in terms of building themselves into a contender. But I mean, how much better could this first season be going? You've somehow magnified the national landscape that Deion had coming into the year. The recruiting efforts, I don't know how they could possibly slow down. They're going to be able to portal in a big way every single year. You don't know what Shedeur Sanders is doing at quarterback. That's certainly a question as you look ahead to next year. But I mean, with every single win, It just raises their profile that much more. And with every single loss, sure, it comes down a hair, but that's always the case in college football, right? Colorado is not the biggest story in college football anymore because they got blown out by Oregon and they lost to USC. And so that, made people realize and fully finalize, like, okay, this is not a conference contender in 2023. Doesn't mean it can't be the most fun bowl eligible team. I mean, if Colorado, let's say they go 6-6 or 7-5, and they play in like the New Mexico Bowl or the Arizona Bowl or something, that's going to be the most watched bowl game. That's not a New Year's Six. And it's not going to be particularly close.
The Duke's Mayo Bowl is going to be lit.
The Duke's Mayo Bowl is going to be lit. That's exactly right. And I think that, Deion is having the sort of season that is certainly at the best possible. Like, they were never going to beat. I know they had a chance there at the end, kind of, but when you trail by 27 points in a football game at home, there's a reason for it. You're playing a better team. You're playing a better quarterback. You're playing a better coach. You're playing a better overall team that is in year 2, not in year 1. So I think when you look at where they're at, it couldn't be much better. And I think the offseason results are going to continue to show. And when you look at what the Big 12 is right now and what it's going to be next year when Texas and Oklahoma, jump ship for the SEC, it's just not. You have a bunch of good teams, but you don't have any great dominant teams in there. Like,
zero.
Honestly,
the only one would be Utah, and
that's exactly who I was going to. I'm like,
today they have 28% of the players have been injured, and a lot of these guys are veterans. Like, Utah is struggling right now. I feel they did get new trucks though, so shout out to them.
Yeah, they did get the trucks, but I mean, I think you look at Utah and say, okay, that's the biggest brand from a winning standpoint right now. I know TCU went to the national championship game. That was one season. Utah has been to, entering this year, 4 consecutive Pac-12 title games when they've played a full season of college football, right? So take out COVID, 2018, 19, 21, 22. Utah has been there every single year, and they've won it twice. Nobody else in the Big 12 can say that. Nobody else in the Pac-12 can say that. Nobody, in the mix of them can say that either. So I think that it's a very wide open conference, and there's not going to be a shortage of talent. There isn't a shortage of talent in Colorado, and I think the Buffs would certainly be a top half of the conference team next year. You got to be able to go in and get offensive and defensive line help. But I mean, like we thought coming into the year, like sure, Sanders probably pretty good. Yeah, he's really, really good. Makes the Power 5 jump, no problem, absolutely none. He's good to go. Yeah, it's been smooth sailing for him on that front. Travis Hunter, turns out the number 1 overall player in the class of 2022, is really, really good. Who could have foreseen? And then Omarion Miller and Dylan, and like you have all these guys out there. Cormani McLean looked really good last week, which I think was another positive coming from USC. Is like at some point in time this season, it appears that you're going to have that dynamic cornerback duo of Travis Hunter and Cormani McLean, and you're going to face some good quarterbacks this year. You need solid DBs, and those guys look more than solid. So I think it's all moving in the right direction, and I don't know what Buffs fans are going to deem a successful season in 2023, but I mean, if they get to a bowl game, that was a standard before the year I would have said as a successful one, and after the year, I'd say the same thing. And I don't think that it's a failure if you don't get to a bowl game. I think it's just disappointing given how the first 3 weeks went.
Yeah, I think to quickly touch on the state of the program, first few weeks, I think by this point, most people thought they'd be sitting at a nice record of like 1-4. Let's just say that, because I think the only win that people were like for sure on their schedule as a win is Colorado State.
Yep.
So you've already exceeded expectations there. Obviously, the attention's great. They've played in 5 of the most 8 watched games of college football this season. That's crazy. That's going to help recruiting. That's going to help transfer portals. So that's great. And then I look at the current state of the program as in like what's next. Obviously, Travis Hunter is down. But if there was a time for him to be down outside of the Oregon USC game, this next 3-week stretch is perfect for them to get him back, because they have Arizona State this weekend. They have Stanford next weekend. Then they have a bye week. Then they play UCLA, and he should be back for UCLA.
Okay, I want to push back on that though.
Go ahead.
I think not having him for Oregon and USC is when you would prefer to not have him, because even with Travis Hunter there, those are not winnable football games.
Maybe.
But if I'm Colorado,
the USC game maybe a little different. Those corners were getting toasted. Those corners were getting cooked.
Yeah, I mean, TCU also put up 42.
That's true. But he also had a diving interception. He's always one play away from changing the game. So
That's true. However, I think Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams would have had the wherewithal to be like, let's not throw at number 12, who's locking down everybody that he covers.
Chandler Morris could never.
Chandler Morris literally cannot. So I just look at it from a standpoint of I want to have him back in games where I feel like we've got a chance. And by the way, I picked you guys to upset UCLA before the year. I have not wavered off of that prediction yet. We'll see what UCLA does this week against Washington State, but I think they're going to lose. And I think UCLA is a good but not great team. And I think that the Bruins game is one that Colorado is capable of winning if Shedeur Sanders is there. And I hear what you're saying about, well, we don't necessarily need him for ASU or this, but Vegas is very rarely wrong in a big way. And that line is only 4.5 for a reason. There is something that they know. I would have thought that line on the road is closer to 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But it's 4.5 for a reason. They know something. That's a game that if Colorado doesn't bring it, they could lose. Arizona State's looking for their first Pac-12 win under a new coach. Arizona State has got a better defense than USC, which is...
They may have played USC... Like the results don't show it because it was a double-digit win or a double-digit loss for them.
They played them tight.
Maybe almost as good, if not better than Colorado. It was a one-score game in the fourth quarter with chances, and then I think Drew Pine had an interception or a fumble or something at the end there that kind of derailed it. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about looking forward, and you should be excited about our little ASU preview coming up. But first, let me tell you about our sponsors over at FanDuel.
Sponsor, not Spencer. I'm a Spencer. They're a sponsor.
Sponsors. They sponsor us. Spencer's with us. The NFL season has started, so I need you to snap into the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options that include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of our good friends over at the NFL.
I don't know if I have to tell this to Buffs fans, Kevin, but I'd go bet Colorado -4.5.
I would too. As someone who lives in a non-gambling state, I personally will not be betting anything.
I also live in a non-gambling state.
But for those in Colorado who live in a gambling state, hammer it. Go hammer it. Maybe tease it to 5 just to be safe. Yeah. But here's the thing. ASU comes in this week. Their record, 1-4, a little deceiving. When I look at ASU from an outside perspective, I see quarterback issues because, again, I think this is their third quarterback in 3 weeks. They're starting with Trenton
Bourguet. Trenton Bourguet.
Trenton Bourgeoisie, yes, of course. And then, obviously, they have a
little communist manifesto for your Friday.
We obviously don't support that here. That's what his name reminds me of. He's a good quarterback, solid quarterback.
That's good.
Here's the thing. They got Cameron Scadaboo, who, if you're a Colorado fan, should be terrified of. That guy can run. He could throw. They've had him throw like in the past 2 games, or if not 3, if I missed the last one. And he is a great catcher out of the backfield, great receiver out of the backfield. Troy Taylor's guy kind of built him, kind of made him what he is. And now this is the exact kind of player that terrorizes his defense. What do you think of this Arizona State team?
It is Cameron Scadaboo, Elijah Badger, and Jalen Conyers. That's kind of your trio of offensive weapons. Yep. Scadaboo's really good. I mean, he is a tough, physical, hard-nosed runner of the football, and we know Colorado hasn't exactly been great defending the run this year. Right. Yep. Probably one of the reasons that Vegas thinks that the line is as small as it is. However, Jalen Conyers is a great weapon as a tight end. He's got some speed, good hands, big body.
He's so massive.
He'll just box out a defensive back. He had this play against Southern Utah, whose shirt I'm rocking today here on YouTube. People may not know I'm the voice of the Thunderbirds athletics, so I was down in Tempe calling that game, and he ran a corner route. And Jaden Rashada, the quarterback at the time, threw in the ball. And Conyers literally just turned around, just boxed out the DB, and said, try and come through me, high points the ball and catches it. That's the sort of weapon he is. Elijah Badger is a really good wide receiver. He's really solid. Xavier Guillory, also a good player. Here's the problem, Kevin. Arizona State has been unable to get these guys highly involved in the offense outside of Scadaboo, because you can just give it to Cameron Scadaboo and he'll run wild. But you have to actually throw it to Jalen Conyers, Elijah Badger, and Xavier Guillory. It's a good array of weapons, but they have struggled to move the ball consistently through the air because of the revolving door of quarterbacks who have gotten hurt, unfortunately, and they're back to Trenton Bourguet, a one-time walk-on, who's capable, but nothing special.
Was a starter at the end there.
Yeah, he was. By the way, Trenton Bourguet is the last quarterback to defeat the Washington Huskies. Fun fact.
Wow.
Yeah, Washington has not lost since they went down to the desert and lost to ASU and Trenton Bourguet 45-38. Since then, the Dogs have riled off like 13 straight wins or something. So I think that that's an offense that if you take away the run, they just haven't moved the ball through the air consistently, and that's the biggest obstacle for Colorado. Can they take away the run? So far, they haven't. I like them against the pass with guys like Cormani McLean and Shiloh Sanders. I don't know if Shiloh's back this week. But if they've got those two guys back there, at least I feel better about that unit. And Cooper, the DB, has been up and down this year, but has certainly had some good moments. I feel better about that than trying to stop the run with Cameron Scadaboo, who's just a tough guy to tackle.
Yeah, and shout out to Cooper, by the way. Caleb Williams told USC reporters that was the hardest hit he ever took in football. So,
yeah, that was a pop. That was
Mario Cooper lit him up. We heard the click on TV. It was like a cut. And I was like, oh, dang. I was like, hello. Caleb usually doesn't take those hits, which is a rarity. But for Colorado, I'll give you my 3 keys. Shadur's got a ball. That's just the key for every game, because obviously we got some bright spots from the run game, but that wasn't enough for me to be like, you know what? This run game can help them win a game. I need Shadur 400 plus yards, the usual Shadur performance. I need to see the flex, the wristwatch, the nice little rolly towards the camera. I need to see it. Defensively, I think they can get pressure on this Arizona State quarterback. Whoever is there, obviously it's Trenton, but even if it's not him, they go to the BYU transfer. If something were to happen to him, I think they can make him uncomfortable. And I think that will help them out in the long term and help them avoid the pass catchers that they have, because they are good. It's just a matter of the ball needs to go from point A to point B, and it usually has had issues leaving point A.
Yeah, and I think this offensive line is a work in progress for Arizona State. There are a couple solid players up there. You know, Bram Walden's a former highly rated 4-star recruit out of the state of Arizona, transferred from Oregon. But I think overall they're just all right at best. It is an opportunity for Colorado's defense to try and get pressure in a way that, you know, they haven't consistently this year, but they showed glimpses. I mean, they got Caleb, you know, at least under duress. I think they sacked him a couple times on Saturday. Like, it's not impossible here, and I think you're going up against a worse offensive line than you faced last week in USC. So I look at this matchup, and, you know, the biggest thing I think will define it is Colorado's offense, because if the offense can move the ball and score against a stingy ASU defense, then ASU doesn't have any hope, because the Sun Devil offense cannot, I repeat, cannot keep pace with the Colorado offense. If Colorado gets things moving, ASU cannot keep up. They just can't. They don't have a great offense. It's just where they're at right now. They're in a full rebuild. And, you know, from a talent standpoint, they're behind Colorado. So I look at this game and say, okay, if Colorado gets things going offensively, I think that's game over. Because even against a weak bust defense, I just don't trust what ASU's done this year offensively. I can't get out of my head the image of them getting shut out at home by Fresno State. They got beat at home against Oklahoma State. They only put up like 15 points, and Oklahoma State is bad. Really bad. So I don't have a lot of faith in that ASU offense. It'll come down to the Sun Devil defense. Can they get a turnover or two? Can they, you know, keep Colorado from being able to run the football? Can they pressure Shadur Sanders? Those are the keys they have to be looking at, because offensively, it's going to be a matter of, you know, will they even score over 24 points?
Yeah, I think especially you mentioned it. Arizona State struggles to score. Colorado's defense struggles, but Colorado's defense is a big play defense. So say they force a pick or something and Colorado goes up 2 scores, you may as well turn the TV off, because that game's over, because Colorado's just going to keep scoring. I also, before we go, I've been saying these next couple of weeks, obviously they're playing the Pac-12 bottom feeders. This is a find your identity week or moment for Colorado, because they don't have an identity that is actually a useful one. Coach Prime himself said they don't have an identity. Right now, I talked about this 2 days ago. Their identity is let Shadur Sanders ball out and hope somebody else can make a play on defense. That's not a true identity. This is a establish ourselves on defense.
Well, it's an identity. It's just not a high level winning one.
Yeah, no,
it's a limited identity. How about that?
And so this is a time for them to defense, figure out what works, offense, establish a run game. So Colorado has a chance here. They have a chance to string together a couple wins and kind of regain some of the momentum they've lost from their past 2 weeks. Spencer, thank you for hopping on and joining us. Tell the people where they could find you and talking about all the Pac-12 shenanigans.
Yeah, a lot of shenanigans in the soon-to-be-dead Pac-12, or is it? You'll just have to tune into Locked On Pac-12 to find out as time goes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm at Smalls_55 on Twitter, my personal handle. Kevin, great to be on with you. Looking forward to this weekend. And I have put my faith in the Pac-12 prime picks on the Buffs, and they are my favorite pick of the week. And I've said as much on my Friday episode. So don't let me down, please.
Don't let them down, Buffs. This is Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Thank you guys for getting us to 3,500 subscribers the other day. We appreciate you guys. Let's get to 10,000 by the end of the season. Is that too hard to ask? Have a great day, everybody. Have a great weekend.